Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Oh,
Welcome.
hi. There's more people here. How are you?
Yes. Almost everybody is here.
Beautiful.
Unfortunately, Ricardo sent me a message just saying he's going to be 5 minutes late. So what we'll do is we'll cover some really basic ground and just have a nice general conversation, do some basic introductions. And then when Ricardo gets here, we'll dive right in. But welcome. It's really, really great to see you all in one place. I tried to gather quite a mix of backgrounds and locations and interests. So it's going to be interesting to see because there's some technical stuff here, but I think it is also very accessible. So it's going to be great to hear your perspectives on how you perceive this information. And there'll be some stuff that you pick up that I absolutely haven't, and I really want to hear that. But before we get too far down that rabbit hole, why don't we just start with some really, really brief introductions? Just name where you are and something general about you. Then when Ricardo gets here, I'd like to go a little bit deeper. So why don't we start with Dan? Why don't you kick us off, my friend?
Glad to,
Introduce
Regan.
yourself briefly.
Yeah, well, g'day everyone. I'm Dan. I'm based in Brisbane. My background is quite um, multifaceted, I guess. So I started off as an ag scientist. I got into research management, intellectual property commercialization, all that sort of stuff. Then I morphed into construction, large project construction. So I've been commercial manager in construction projects all over the country and around the world. Then later life, I studied neuro-linguistic programming. So I'm a master practitioner and a coach. And I did a program with Regan, and that kind of opened up a whole new um, inquiry for me in terms of how the brain works and just trying to utilize the brain as much as we can. So I guess that's what brought me. That's what when I saw this program, I just went, "Oh my God, I've got to at least have a look at this thing, just lift the bonnet up and have a look at the engine at least."
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
really, really, it just fascinates me. It just really
Awesome.
fascinates me. So yeah, really.
Thanks for that, man. Appreciate it. Um,
Or, excuse me.
Mel, why don't you go next? I know that you've actually come into some contact with this. I'd be curious to know what depth you've explored the gateway stuff specifically, and just tell us a little bit about where you're coming from.
Yeah, sure. So, hey guys, I'm Mel. I'm on the Gold Coast, so not far from you, Dan. Yeah, I it was interesting because I found these documents maybe 3 to 6 months ago and shared it with my like dreams. I'm a dream teacher therapist. So shared it with that group. And I haven't explored it in depth, but it was just one of those things that I was like, this is insane. And yeah, so when you messaged about it, I was just like, when there's synchronicities and they just align, I was just like, thank you. I've been doing a lot of that, like not trying to manifest, I just do manifest. I suppose we all do without even knowing it. So just being more aware of what I'm putting my focus on. Yeah, and then you arrived, so that's good.
Well, I think if you pay a lot of attention to your dreams, I think that's a really powerful way to
Yeah,
manifest, right? So
yeah.
if that's something you're already in tune with, I think this is going to really supercharge that. But I assume
Yeah.
you've been using techniques and maybe tools. Do you use any, whether it's supplements or maybe
Hmm.
technologies to enhance it? What kinds of
Yeah.
things do you use?
I don't use any technologies besides the alarm clock.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't worry about all that red light stuff. I do like using supplements, but I more use like personal cues and like dream symbols, repetitive signs and symbols to get lucid so that it's coming from an internal
Yep.
area rather than something external like a flashing light. Like it needs to be like something emotional or, something that's deep in your psyche. So I use those triggers. Yeah.
Awesome. I think
And just
we'll
supplements to like enhance the vividness and the memory recall.
awesome. We
Mm.
will probably at some point have some time set aside to actually talk about dreams, because this really gets into the unconscious mind, and I think dreams is a perfect place to start. So I'd love to talk more with you about that. For now, Angie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Course. Hi everyone. Hi Regan. Hi Jen and Mel. How are you guys? Is anyone else here?
Yeah, Abel.
Ricardo? No, it's not here.
Oh,
Oh, there's more
Ricardo's not
people.
here
Hold on.
and Abel is here.
Abel, hey, nice to meet you guys. I'm Angie. I'm from Latin America. Been in Australia for 15 years. I live in Brisbane, and I am a designer. I did studies in ontological design, and I am now an artist, and I design large scale stuff. I've known Reagan for since 2017, and when I went to visit him a few weeks ago, uh, it just captured me straight away. There was a yes in me, a whole body yes, and yeah, I'm really, really excited to get some very interesting knowledge from this. So,
Awesome. And knowledge you will get.
yeah.
Angie does these really interesting art installations. They're sort of like effigies that she takes to festivals and they burn. So like big hearts. What else? You've done people as well, sort of like a Burning Man kind of thing.
Yeah, and I've got an Ouroboros, so the snake eating its own tail,
Yeah.
just symbolisms and things, just symbols basically. And it's a very interesting uh community art creation space, and yeah, beautiful experiences co-created with a lot of different people. So yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And Abel, do you want to introduce yourself, my friend?
Hello, everyone. I am Abel. I live in London right now. My family is from Ecuador, and I'm studying music at the moment. So that's basically my biggest passion is music. Play many instruments, I produce. And I came to this course when I joined your academy in the school. And I remember, and I saw I was actually looking for things like that. And actually, your thing came up the next day when I was looking at things. So I thought it was a sign. So I think I'm looking for these things. I'm reading books about these things. And you come with this. So I said, this is my chance. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to enjoy. I know I'm going to enjoy. So thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome, my friend. And music, obviously, sound, frequency, vibration, etc., which I think you're going to have some really unique insights into the whole Gateway training because it is about layered audio. Right. And so as you can see, there's really quite a diverse group here with different expertise and everyone in some way, Dan with the neurolinguistic programming, Mel with the dreams, everyone has a very relevant but also unique take on what we're going to study. Ricardo has just entered. So Ricardo, when you have audio and you can hear us, just speak up.
Hello, guys.
Hello, hello, welcome.
Sorry for being late, but I had a call, so
look, you happen to have landed. We've been talking about synchronicities already, and you landed here exactly when it's your turn to introduce yourself. And as they say,
perfect.
A wizard is neither early nor late. He arrives exactly when he's meant to be there. But please
That's
introduce.
Gandalf. Hello, guys. Wait, okay, I see you all. I'm Riccardo. I'm from Milan, Italy. I think many of you are from Australia, and I've been to Australia for a couple of years, so I hope I will understand your accent because I trained myself for a couple of years.
Dan's
Riccardo,
the biggest one to watch out for. He's a country boy.
Okay. Good. I will pay particular attention.
Correct.
So I'm from Milan. I have a background in communication. I had my degree a few years ago. Then I studied music for many years. I'm also an aspiring music producer, so I'm on that journey, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this work with the frequencies, with binaural beats and solfeggio frequencies. And I work as a coach, blending esoteric knowledge and business advice, mainly on X, on Twitter, where that's where I met Regan 1 year ago, more or less.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah,
So
that's good. We kept it at a reasonably surface level just for now. In a few moments, I will ask you guys to talk a little bit about your goals, etc. But I'm going to set the scene with just background to the theories and the constructs we'll be dealing with. And also, we also have just some basic things to get through, like I'm going to be recording these sessions, and the idea here is that I don't have a course built, so you guys are kind of my mastermind, my brains trust, right? What I would ultimately like to do is have a course that would be equivalent to like a second or third year university course, that one might learn if they wanted to know about a good mix of neuroscience and consciousness and perception, right? The unconscious mind, dreams, right? Really, a lot of stuff that the modern university doesn't really touch on. They're a bit scared to talk about it. But happily, I have a background in the neuroscience, the consciousness, the perception. So I've done that training, but my interests really lie in altered states of consciousness, spirituality, right? And so what I would like to do really here is to give some rigor to the spiritual and give some flavor to the scientific, I guess. And so together, I would like us to explore some really interesting topics. But it should be fun. I think this will be a really enjoyable experience, but also there will be some reading and some research and some practice, right? I'm going to try to make any of the technical stuff not dumb it down too much, because I think people who are interested can understand anything. But because we all have different expertise and different backgrounds, it would be great if you can speak up when there's something that is a little bit unsure for you, and then we can explain it and we can test each other's understanding. That's going to really help me build out a course, right? That course, I could imagine taking about 10 to 12 weeks, sort of like a standard university semester. But I imagine us going for about 4 to 6 weeks, right? 4 weeks to get you up to speed on the basics so that you could do everything yourself. If we want to keep going for another 2 weeks, so it's a 6-week cohort, that would allow us to just keep practicing and keep doing these things. And we just check in with each other and see how it's going. Okay. So in general terms, that's my goal. Okay. So that means there are some things that I have to request from you. And that includes the ability to reuse some of this material, right? So I am recording these things. If at any moment you feel like, you've shared something that was really personal to you, or you feel like, you made a fool of yourself in something, right? We can do embarrassing things. You just tell me. Tell me that you didn't like X, Y, Z, and I will make sure that that doesn't go into any final material. Okay. I'd also like to be able to share some of this stuff. I'll be writing about it into the School of Alchemy, which you guys are all now members of. So I'd like to be able to share updates. I'd like to be able to share material and potentially even post little things onto YouTube or Twitter, etc. So nothing is set in stone for that. But if you guys have any issue with any of that, do let me know. But hopefully we're all in an understanding that this is so that this material can be used by others as well. So is everybody cool with that? All right, excellent. Okay, I have a very small amount of background information that I want to take you through. And let me just share my screen very briefly. So can you see, what can you see? I think I shared the wrong screen. This one. Okay, you should see today's agenda. Is that correct? Okay, and I can now see you guys. All right, cool. So we've done a brief welcome, brief meet and greet, and some expectations. And icebreakers in talking about our own experiences. I want to give a background as to why I'm doing this for my own reasons, and what experiences I've had that have led me to actually take a lot of this stuff really seriously. in particular, and I think Dan and Ricardo are probably pretty familiar with this. Angie, Abel, and Melissa, maybe it's the first time you've heard of this, but I know you guys are pretty intuitive people. So often when I talk about this stuff, I get two reactions. Either it's complete bullshit and no one would believe it, or it's so obvious that no one wouldn't believe it. And I find that really fascinating that people seem to be like, it's so obvious or it's complete bullshit. The basic idea is that I think humans are telepathic, right? I think that we can communicate without needing to, speak or, give symbols, whatever. I think we are constantly in tune with each other, right? And we can practice, we can become more or less aware of this, and we can develop our skills in this telepathy, right? So actually what we're going to try to do is help you develop a theoretical understanding of telepathy as part of this process, because I think what we're going to teach you explains why telepathy is not only possible, but our natural state of being. So we're going to try and understand how we are always in communication with everything else through vibration, and then train our ability to harness our own internal frequencies, our internal vibrations, which is going to put us more in tune with the surrounding environment, right? And that means other people, because our main environment is not just birds and trees and, footpaths. It's actually people. And humans have evolved alongside people, which means our environment is more social than it is physical. Okay, so the basic idea is that I think that humans have the ability to be telepathic. So I'm going to basically just quickly walk through the reasons why I think this. Okay, and so I've posted this as a full thread on Twitter some time ago, about a year ago. But the basic idea is that telepathy means the ability to communicate thoughts, feelings, and information directly from one mind to another without the use of speech, gestures, or other conventional means. All right. So the challenge then is, if I believe in telepathy, or I think it is a real physical thing and not just some woo-woo, like it's not just a hunch or a feeling, but a physical thing that can be explained, well then, all right, we have to explain it in terms of that. So that's the actual definition: the ability to communicate thoughts, feelings, or information directly from one mind to another without the use of speech, gestures, or other conventional means. Now, I think anyone who's skeptical will actually fully agree with me on all of the principles that underlie telepathy, right? Which means you have to naturally come to the conclusion that this is something that we can do. At least that's what I hope. Okay. Nobody has any problem with the idea that this little hunk of metal that sits on top of a roof can capture frequencies from the air or the environment, right? So an antenna just sits on the roof, but it's in communication with vibration, with frequency, right? And then that antenna takes signals and vibrations and it channels it down into something like this. So maybe everybody except Abel is old enough to remember a black and white TV with static. But Abel, this was a very common household appliance back in our day. But the basic idea is that antenna on the roof is connected through cables to these antenna on the TV. But these antenna are still, capturing that vibration and then converting that vibration into a signal, right? If there's no signal, then you get this static, right? The black and white. But if there is a signal, then it should actually give a representation of something on the other side, right? So let's say there's a sitcom being filmed. So this guy is an actor on a TV show, and these cameras are capturing what he's doing. And then those cameras are sending that signal partly through cables and then partly through airwaves to be captured by that antenna and displayed on the TV. The process that explains the ability of that antenna to pick up signals is called resonance. Probably everybody's familiar, at least with the word, and many of you guys are musicians, so you'll be directly familiar with this concept of the tuning fork. If you have two tuning forks tuned to the same pitch, right, same frequency, then all you have to do is hit one tuning fork and its vibration will cause a sympathetic resonance with the other one, right? And they will both start vibrating in harmony with each other, in resonance, right? Effectively, they're communicating through vibration. Okay, and so we know that the TV can work. We know these tuning forks can work, and the tuning forks are really, really simple technology, right? These cameras, high definition stuff, and antennas, etc., that's really complicated technology, but they're effectively using the exact same means of communication, which is vibration, frequency. If we then look at the human nervous system, if we strip away our skin, our bones, right, everything else but our sensory nervous system, what you'll see is what looks remarkably like an antenna. Our sensory nervous system is in communication with the environment in this antenna-like fashion, and it's picking up on signals all the time, and then feeding those signals up into the brain. And then we have conscious perceptual experiences, right? So when you look out into the world, out from your eyes, you see kind of like a sitcom playing out in front of you, right? So whatever signals are coming at us, we then feed that up into the brain, and then the brain seems to be intimately associated with our perceptual experiences. Okay, so far so good, hopefully. Is there anything that I've said is not like grounded in solid science and logic and rationality? Okay, so if our nervous system looks like an antenna and our consciousness is kind of like it's playing this TV show in front of us, basically we want to try to understand the physical realms, right? And the physical realm is made up of light and frequency and vibration, and that's true at every scale, right? So this picture is a look at the electromagnetic spectrum, light. And then this tiny little band is the visible light frequencies. So from ultraviolet on the left-hand side to infrared on the right-hand side. And if you keep going to the left, you'd have X-rays and gamma rays. If you kept going to the right, you'd have microwaves, radio, etc. Okay. So those vibrational frequencies, some of them we can see, some of them we can hear, most of them we can't. We can't interact with at all with our biology. If we go down to the very extreme small, right, we go down to the atom. Atoms aren't really just little particles, little billiard balls knocking around. They're actually effectively interference patterns, right? They are little waves of collapsed waves of energetic interference. Okay, so at the very smallest scale, we are vibrating energy. And then if we go beyond us and then up into the larger scales, our Earth is basically a giant magnet, and it has its own electromagnetic field, right? And it vibrates. And so at the smallest scale and at the largest scale, everything is vibration, everything is energy. When we communicate through normal channels, through speech, for instance, we are vibrating our diaphragm, our lungs, our throat. We are using our lips to change that vibration so that we can hear each other. We can create intelligible signals that then go into the other person's ear, and then the tympanic membranes of the ear vibrate, sending signal to the brain. So again, vibration is how we communicate in normal ways. One of the problems with describing telepathy and why a lot of people reject it is that we don't feel telepathic. Why can't I look at you and know exactly what you're thinking, right? Now, some would say, actually, you kind of can if you pay attention, but fair enough. Let's say that we can't really do it, or at least not as well as we would like. One thing that's important to remember is that we are biological creatures, right? We have a physical material body, and we live in a physical material world. We are subject to basic constraints of our biology. That means we have to survive, we have to eat, we have to reproduce, right? And we have to pay attention to the environment that is around us, right? Which means our nervous system, this big antenna, it has to prioritize signals that are relevant for our survival, because I can be as tuned into, planetary information as much as I want, but if a tiger comes along and eats me, then I've prioritized the wrong signals, right? So as a matter of survival, we have to prioritize certain signals over others, right? Which actually kind of traps us into focusing on things that are threats to our survival. Hence, it's one of the reasons why it's so easy for people to have what's called a negativity bias. We pay attention to things that make us afraid, right? Things that are negative in the environment, right? The news, it just screams bloody murder all the time to get us to pay attention to it. So our biology that's built on top of our antenna or nervous system has certain constraints, and we have to prioritize things that keep us alive and allow us to reproduce. And so we get a little bit constrained within just a small section of this 3D environment. And then in addition to the fact that we're paying attention to stuff that's immediately in front of us, we have lots of mixed signals, right? So I might need to wait patiently in line at a grocery store. Meanwhile, I need to go to the bathroom. Meanwhile, someone behind me is like yelling and my child is, asking me for chocolates. And I have all of these competing things going on. So it's really difficult for me to tune in to very, very subtle signals, right? Like that antenna on the roof, it's picking up really subtle vibrations that we typically can't be aware of, right? And the way the mind works is that we're going to pay attention to the most salient, the most obvious signal, right? If we want to pay attention to really quiet, if we want to become sensitive, we have to kind of block out a lot of the big stuff so that we can hear the quiet sounds and the more subtle vibrations. Okay, so what we have there, that inner conflict, is called cognitive dissonance. And this is all these competing signals that are going on within us. I don't want to get too far into this. I'm going to actually allow you to go and read more of this if you want it. But basically, what we need to do if we want to improve our telepathic abilities is to block out some of the high-level noise, stuff around survival and reproduction, and block out stuff that's in the immediate environment. So sort of closing the eyes, being in a quiet environment, and start tuning in internally, right? We want to, so these tuning forks, if they're tuned to the same frequencies, they will harmonize with each other. But if they're tuned to different frequencies, they will not harmonize with each other. They will not interfere with each other. So what we need to do, if we've got all of these different frequencies inside of us, all these different conflicts, we're not going to be able to harmonize properly with more important signals. So we need to come into coherence within ourselves. We need to align the signals within us so that we can tune into the frequencies that we care about, that we want to know. Now, that might be the thoughts and feelings of our family and people around us. But what I'm going to try and get us to is to recognize that actually distance and location are not that important when you tune into a telepathic signal. Just like in the antenna, it doesn't really matter. Like that can be coming from a satellite, thousands of kilometers away. Distance is actually not that important when you're on the right frequency. Okay, so what we're going to try and learn is how to bring our body into harmony internally so that we can tune into signals that matter to us. Okay, so when we're not in harmony, it feels like noise, and this could be like anxiety or depression or restlessness or all these other things that are pretty normal in our day-to-day life. So what we want to do, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the energy centers of the body, because each of them is tuned to a different frequency. Like our reproductive organs have a certain impulse associated with them, whereas our heart and our throat and our eyes, etc., they're all tuned towards subtly different things, but we can get them to align. And this is what the ancient mystics are talking about when they talk about aligning the chakras or unblocking the chakras, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that, because that's how we can pinpoint certain vibrations that we want to come into harmony with and then align them all. When we do this, when everything is aligned internally, then we can tune into the bigger signals, right? Into external things, right? And some of these symbols you might have seen, like this torus shape, this is very important. This is how information is transferred from within and to without, and from within and to without. So this is the kind of energetic vibration that we want to maximize within us so that we can communicate with bigger signals. I'm gonna pull up from there. We don't have to go too deep, but hopefully I haven't said anything that is too out there. I know the fundamental thesis is kind of out there, but hopefully all of the major logical blocks are actually quite coherent and quite step by step to get from this idea that we're telepathic, which seems crazy, but all of the elements actually lead us to that conclusion. So, without trying to tear the entire thesis apart, do people have any questions they wanted to comment on this, or is what I've said logical, or is it stupid? I'd love to hear just briefly, like a couple of minutes, because then I'll move us on to the agenda.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, Regan. I think it's that's a good way of describing it, that logical progression. I think it's good how you tie it back to those logical things so that the conclusion is logical, you know. So I quite like that. Thing that popped into my head while you were talking about that ability to pass information without speaking or some other mode was about genetic code and how genetics are passed on from generation to generation. But I've been interested in where they come, how that starts, and so there's all this knowledge that's encoded in genes that gets communicated, I guess, through the process of reproduction. So there's some fundamental thing too about the transmission of knowledge and information, beyond telepathy, but it's fundamental to us because that's how we're made up.
Yep. And I'd like to comment on this and say that one of the things we'll talk about is I want to present to you a theory kind of the universe and of consciousness that brings into the idea two core principles. And this is a fractal and a hologram, right? A fractal hologram. Probably you guys have heard each of these things independently, and maybe some of you are even familiar with the holofractal kind of theory of the universe, right? What you're describing with the genetic code being it's information storage, right? What both holograms and fractals, or really a hologram already is a fractal, so it's kind of redundant to say that. But basically, if the universe is holographic in some way, which is the thesis of this model, which we're going to discuss, if the universe is holographic, one thing holograms can do really well is store tremendous amounts of information, right? I'm going to show you information and evidence that the brain has holographic properties. And I believe this extends reasonably clearly to things like genetics. Our entire physical makeup really is holographic, right? That idea is going to be addressed in a number of different ways. So I'm not going to break it down too much at this point right now, but I think it's pretty well supported that storage of information is, a natural challenge. But this idea, this theory really well accounts for, the ability to pass down information across species, generations. Okay, I'm going to share that document again. Okay, so that's the background is that I had all these telepathic experiences, basically. I felt like I was downloading information that I either A, couldn't possibly know, or B, I had come into contact with, but through strong meditation and exploration of altered states of consciousness, I was able to download information in really, really high fidelity. That meant that I had almost complete understandings of things that I had never really had to study. And, I developed these abilities through long form Vipassana meditation. I know a couple of you have done some Vipassana meditations. If you haven't, they're extremely difficult, grueling periods of silent meditation in like a retreat center. So you go for like 10 days, you stay silent, you avoid eye contact, you avoid contact of any kind with anybody. All your food is served to you, and you're basically in the dark for 10 days, and you meditate sort of 12 hours a day. And I've done a number of these. And obviously, those are the perfect environments for you to really tune into your internal, like tune your nervous system internally, so that you can become internally harmonized. And when you are, you then have the ability to sort of access information, right? And so that very humble antenna on the top of your roof, it can download high definition information and display it on your TV. These mobile devices, right, they're communicating telepathically, right? My mobile vibrates, and that signal is transferred to a satellite or a radio tower, and that goes to your phone, and then we can communicate in real time, effectively telepathically, right? We just have a digital medium that helps us do it. And we can download high definition video in real time. Like I can be walking across a street, not paying attention to, cars and people, etc., and I can be watching a high definition video through this vibration process. So the amount of information contained in these signals is extraordinarily high. And so when I was doing these retreats, I would start to come into contact with ideas and perceptions, full visions, when I'm asleep, very lucid dreams, to the point where I could explore very, very deep concepts fully just in my mind. And then I'd come out of the meditation retreat and I'd write entire scientific papers or, program entire, experiments, etc., just because I had a flash of insight for a number of seconds. So and what I wanted to understand is, okay, what is occurring physically that is allowing this to happen? And I believe what I'm describing to you and what we're going to discuss in the book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, and the CIA document, and those videos, and then this training, I believe it's all the information you need to get the exact same experiences. Now, obviously, the fundamental barrier, the fundamental roadblock will be your own work, right? I can't give you these experiences, but I can teach you how to approach them, how to develop them for yourself. Okay, so my personal reasons for doing this is that I find it unbelievably fascinating, and it has changed the course of my life, and it has made me a very different person. And I guess I try to take these things a lot more seriously now that I've come into contact with certain things, right? And I think it's also my duty to try to share this information, and I think it's the right time to do it. People are really hungry for this kind of thing, and the understanding is there. I meet so many people who've never touched on this stuff in a scientific way, but have have come to intuit it. So I think people are doing it naturally all the time, right? And they want a way to explain it and understand it and maybe even enhance and practice it. So again, that's what we're here to do. So those are my particular reasons, and that's the background, and that's the theory that I want to develop with you. So if anything that I've said you're skeptical about, we're actually going to explore all of this in some detail and try to come to it from many different angles so that it becomes clear. And if we are wrong, like if this is just crazy, cool, we'll find that out too. That's also part of the process. What I would like to do now, it's 8:40, so we've probably got up to about another 45 to 50 minutes. And I'm happy to go a bit later, but also I think if we can keep these sessions reasonably tight, because we don't want to burn ourselves out and then not want to come back in the future. So what I would like to do is just, if you could briefly, hopefully when I sent you that text, you thought a little bit about what you want to achieve. Now, the reason I ask you this is not just for, I want to know a little bit about you. Actually, what we're doing here, as Mel touched on in her introduction, is a little bit of manifestation, right? If we have a clear goal, when we become aligned within ourselves and then we become aligned with external things, a natural part of this process is you're going to become much better at manifesting things. So it's actually kind of important to have something that's meaningful to you, especially if it's a good thing, like a pro-social or a benefit to humanity. That would be a really good thing to have in your mind while you're practicing these things, right? Because the danger actually of me teaching you this stuff is that it's very, very powerful, and it can be used either for the wrong reasons, but also you can download a lot of information and it can burn you out. So I don't want you to think this is just all easy and all benefit. There's a reason that a lot of ancient wisdom is held actually quite tightly, in monasteries and in secret societies, let's say. It's not just to keep the secrets from the masses. It's actually because in the wrong hands or used improperly, it can cause a lot of damage. So there is an element of respect needed here. And I think you can give respect to this stuff by having a worthwhile goal and purpose for using it. So let's go in reverse order. I'm going to start with you, Ricardo, now. What are you looking at in the next 3, 6, 12 months that you want to achieve? What would you like to see come into the world by your own hands?
It's a good question, and I think I would like to bring more energy and more clarity to what I'm already doing. I also had some experience with Vipassana retreats, so I can relate to what you said. I had some crazy downloads during those times, and it was pretty life-changing also because it brought some form of clarity. It was mainly in the form of visual symbols. So I visualized some images that could seem random if I describe them, and I'm not gonna describe them, but they unveiled some kind of deeper meaning, and they really changed the trajectory of my life. So to wrap up, what I want to get out of this is the ability to channel even more clarity and energy in what I'm already doing, and possibly become better at defining the next steps of my journey. So
Because
bringing clarity.
having worked with you, I know that you've had at various times very clear purpose and vision. So it sounds like you've gotten to a point where you've even manifested what you wanted, and now it's like resetting a new vision. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
awesome.
I am going through a sort of plateau moment,
Yeah.
and I feel there is some kind of introspective work needed in order to unlock clarity for the
Great.
next steps.
Yep, fantastic. Yeah, we don't need to have, fully developed blueprints for some, utopian vision to the future. If you want more clarity, you want more vision, that's a fantastic goal. Right. Right, cool. So I just want to briefly also touch on the video. It talks about the lamp versus laser, right, of the brain. Like as you come into coherence, a lamp can give off plenty of light, but it's diffuse over a small area. And then if you took the exact same amount of energy, but concentrated it like a laser, you could burn a hole in a wall, right?
Mhm.
So that's like clarity. If you have purpose, but if the energy is diffuse, it can't penetrate as far. But if you take the same energy you already have and concentrate it, your manifestation abilities and your ability to make things happen in the external world, massively amplified.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for right now.
Perfect. Well, you are in the right place, my friend.
You worded like your words explain it better than mine. So good.
I have the advantage of natural English.
Yeah.
Who did we go? I think it was Abel. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your, just general? As I said, it doesn't have to be a well-defined blueprint, but what are you working towards?
Oh, my personal life right now, I'm studying, so it's a very important part of me to finish my studies. But when I heard about this course, the main thing I wanted to achieve was total silence in my mind. That's the main thing I would love to achieve. My father, when I was a kid, introduced me to meditation a little bit, but when I really started doing was a few months ago. And I found out, as you saw in your picture, that your mind is in chaos totally all the time and every moment. So what I would like to find is that ability to have total silence for a long period, but total, because when you have total silence, you feel a connection with things around you, with people around you. It's like you said, this experience that many people would think is not real, it's mystic, but it's something is touchable, it's tangible. I feel that I help with it. If you are able to manipulate with what vibration your brain it is and where you are, you can achieve what I'm looking for. It's total silence. Simply just that.
Okay, excellent. I think some of the techniques about getting into harmony and some of the resonance techniques will massively move your energy focus from if your head is really loud, it's because your energy focus is right up here. As you become in harmony with the rest of the energy in your body, you'll notice all the energy moves through you rather than being stagnant up here. So it can be really, really helpful, reducing the noise of the thoughts. All right, thank you, Abel. Next is Angie.
Okay. I think one of my main objectives is to sharpen my focus. I've had some really interesting experiences with I think I think I can call it telepathy or something like that, as very well formed sentences appear, or I guess came into my awareness. Can I say that? Yeah. So I know I did not create them. I didn't have the language for that, so they just appeared. And I think that's is one of the most interesting experiences that I had, and where they happen in moments of clarity, where I was very grounded, um, especially after having done Vipassana the second time. So I just want to explore that a little bit more.
Okay.
And I had, yeah, a telepathy also with my daughter. And I mean, now since you explained what it is, and I guess that's what it is. So I just want to explore a little bit more about that. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think on that latter point, one of the things about telepathy is that we have a higher coherence with people that we have emotional resonance with, right? So
Mm,
if we're in harmony with somebody, right, like a child, you
mm,
really have a deep sense of how they're feeling, and so there's like that shared
mm,
experience. So
mm,
one thing that we could potentially do is I'm playing with this idea of developing things that allow us to become telepathic with each other. Happy to talk more about that in time,
mm,
but I think we should hopefully give you some really good language to speak about what you're experiencing with your daughter and with other
mm,
experiences. So, um, yeah, thank you.
mm.
Next is Mel. What are you working towards?
Hey, everybody. Well, I have had these sort of experiences like multiple times. My mum is a psychic, and I've had like, when you're explaining when you get information that there was no way that you could have ever known. I've had downloads like that in the dream space before, like with people that have passed away. So I suppose you would call it like psychic medium. But the thing is that I feel like I have no control over it in the way that I can't like turn it on and off and things like that. And I feel like it's because I have a lot of cognitive dissonance. And basically, the way that I like use dreams to help people is that I literally get answers within my dreams, and then I'll use that in like what I'm teaching. And at the moment, I'm creating a lucid dreaming course so that people can learn to lucid dream. But I'm wanting to pull, from source to be able to create for people. But because I've got lots of like stress, I'm diagnosed with ADHD, I have two little kids, like you're explaining what's going on. I feel like that's probably blocking me. Um, so yeah, I would just like to be able to get back to that space where I'm having these downloads and I'm feeling like I can be like, okay, turn it off or turn it on and like try new things. Also, I love the telepathy side of things. There's a lot of studies going on with dream telepathy at the moment. So I've went and like
Yes, I have
sat
seen
and
some
done
of
a few
this.
talks about that, and it's amazing. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely something interesting we can talk about in the future. Wild stuff, and only further reinforces what we're doing here, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
cool. We can talk about the psychic stuff as well, because that's actually discussed reasonably deeply in the theory in the book. The idea of doing this technical stuff is to understand where do these strange alternative conscious experiences come from. Is
Yeah.
there a reasonable explanation? Because obviously we've struggled with these kinds of things, thinking that someone's crazy or a witch or whatever.
Hmm. Yes.
That book will delve into it and take the subject seriously and try to put it in terms of fundamental physics. So it should be fun. Dan the man, lucky last. What do you want to achieve, or what are you focusing on for this next 3, 6, 12 months?
There's a passage in the Bible, and you'll know this one, Regan, because I mentioned to you during the program that Matthew 25, which is the parable of the talents. And it's a neat story about, but fundamentally what it means for me is that God or the universe, whatever you want to believe, has given us all talents of some sort. And I've got to my stage in life where I don't feel like I've leveraged those talents to the best of their ability or utilize them in the best way. So, and that's about unleashing potential. So my goal is to unleash potential. And by doing that, then I can help clients unleash their potential, so that we end up having leveraged our given talents to their maximum ability or desired ability, I guess. That's really where I'm coming from.
Perfect. So you want to be able to act as a conduit. You want to do it first for yourself and then help others.
And then help others, yes.
Excellent. Yes. So broadly speaking, the goals here are that lamp versus laser. So taking a diffuse energy and focusing it so that it has greater effect on the world. So obviously that is a fundamental element of this training process. We talked about the creative side and dreams and psychics, which is sort of like, you know, the brain operates, it has two hemispheres, and they can broadly be described as operating towards chaos and order, to linear and analytical thinking and holistic creative thinking. And the process of hemisync, which is hemisync is the patented technology, and it means hemispheric synchronization. So what it means is that we can adequately tune into the creative, chaotic, holistic side of the brain or way of thinking, while also maintaining a logical, critical, analytical way of thinking, and combine these, right? And when these two are working properly together, we get the benefit of both. And that's where we start to find that our thoughts make more sense. They're both creative, but they are logical at the same time. And so the hemispheric synchronization process is going to be about reducing cognitive dissonance within us, integrating the hemispheric brain processes, and then by virtue of doing that, we're more focused on producing a coherent vision and action into the world. So all of the things that you guys have described in broad terms fall naturally into these basic ideas: coherence, inner harmony, and action. Okay, let me share the document one more time. Yeah. So we've touched on now your goals, your desired outcomes, and this is going to be really important to take into this process. There will be step-by-step ability for us to make these things clear and then bring it into the training. So what we're going to do is start with theory, which we've already begun touching on, right? I've talked about telepathy, but that's only really one element. Telepathy is a byproduct of this hemisync process or the gateway process. Other things you might experience include energetic healing, premonitions, so sort of psychic type experiences. Then also just calmness, focus, clarity, reduction of mental chatter. It can be anything from, just basically feeling slightly better in a number of ways to really profound changes in conscious experience. Because, as I said, some of this stuff is pretty powerful, I do want to start with theory, right? So we're not going to jump straight into the training just yet. I'd be happy to do it in the second week, but I want to give at least 1 week where we dedicate ourselves to just a little bit of reading, communicating with each other about what we're thinking, what we're experiencing, right? Taking in some of the information, because there's a fair bit of information here. And then we'll start practicing once we have a little bit of a scaffolding, cognitive scaffolding, so that when we start practicing, it makes sense. Now, we don't want to be all theory, but we also don't want to be just all doing and no theory, right? This is similar to integration of the two hemispheres. One is the theoretical and one is the practical. So if we combine both of these intelligently, we'll get the most out of this. So for the first 2 weeks, we'll focus primarily on theory. I'll introduce practice in the second week. And then for the remainder of the course, we can go another 2 to 4 weeks of, hopefully we can get up to daily practice and we're communicating with each other along the way. We'll find the rhythm that works for us. But the theory that we're focusing on specifically includes this book. It's called Stalking the Wild Pendulum. And it's a logical analysis of some of the things that I talked about in terms of vibration, energy, frequency, but it's fundamentally trying to explain how consciousness fits into the physical universe. It's written in a way so as not to be too technical. It's written in a conversational way, even, humorous way. But we are also talking about some pretty fundamentally technical things. So what we'll try to do for the next week is read one chapter of this book. And you would all have watched the 15-minute version of this video. Okay. You probably noticed, some of you guys commented, it's like it went from part 3 to part 5 to part 7. Where were the other parts? Well, those other parts are in this video, right? So this is an hour-long walkthrough of the CIA document, which is something we'll also touch on. So here it's called the Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process, right? So this was an analysis from the Department of the Army. They looked into a research institute called the Monroe Institute, which was started by a man named Robert Monroe, who started to discover that he had the ability to astral travel. Now, astral travel or astral projection, for those who don't know, is sort of like you're in a sleep state and your body starts to feel these interesting vibrations. And then all of a sudden you realize that your physical body is lying somewhere and still asleep. And you feel as though your consciousness has sort of expanded beyond your body, right? And it can be a vague feeling of expansion, or it can feel physically as though you have a light body or an energy body that moves independently of your physical body. Obviously, to most people, this sounds completely crazy, but if you think about it, like we dream all the time and we have crazy dream experiences of flying, of breathing underwater, of running from dinosaurs or earthquakes or volcanoes, whatever. Obviously, none of these things are happening physically, but you feel as though you're doing all of these things. Meanwhile, your body is stationary. Okay, so it's not that strange to think that we can have really, really high definition conscious experiences without ever, leaving a physical location. Okay, so the idea is that Robert Monroe, yes, go ahead, Abel.
So, for example, if what you say, a dream will be an astral travel, for example, because in a dream you also feel the things. You feel scared. You sometimes you can cry, or I don't know. You can feel the things, but you are not there in the dream. I don't know. Physically, I
So
guess.
whether lucid dreaming and astral travel are the same thing, are related things, or completely different, I'm not going to say exactly, but they do play on the basic idea that our conscious experiences can be completely dissociated from our physical experiences, right? Mel, I feel like you've got something intelligent to say here. Would you like to pipe up?
I suppose the difference that you feel is like when you're talking about being in a dream, it sounds like you're talking about different perspectives. Abel, that's what I mean, where you're saying that you don't always feel like you're in your body and you might see things in a different way. Astral projection is more of like an out of body feeling where you feel like you are separate to your body and that your body has been left behind. Some people might report like they're floating out of their bedroom and they can fly out the window and things like that. Yeah, and it usually will happen like just as you're falling asleep and you feel your body start kind of shaking. It's pretty rare, but you can train yourself to do it. But I suppose the difference is that with lucid dreaming, you're going internally and you're going internally to your own psyche. Whereas with astral projection or out of body, you're more going outside of your own conscious, like outside of your own head. And where people could report things like they came out of their body and then they saw, like, flew down the street and they saw which cars were parked there. And the postman came and delivered 3 letters. And then they'll kind of go back to their body and wake up and look out the window and it will be those exact 3 cars and they saw the same letters being delivered. So that's the difference between astral projection and a dream.
So the idea behind astral projection, exactly as Mel said, is that you seem to be able to travel through the physical environment and even retain information, right? Whereas lucid dream, yes, not so much. It's more in a dreamscape. But they do share that experience where you're on the border of wakefulness and sleep. And so part of this training is going to be a process of putting our physical body into a sleep-like state, but keeping our mind in a conscious state, right? Which is shared between astral projection and lucid dreaming. This is a learnable skill, and this is what we're going to learn with the additional help of some audio techniques, okay? So this document is a military man who's gone into this institute where Robert Monroe, who had these experiences, tried to figure out exactly how to reproduce them. And he did so. He figured out how to systematically reproduce them with these audio techniques. And this is HemiSync. He then links those processes that the Institute was studying with the book Stalking the Wild Pendulum, written by Itzhak Bentov. And he draws together the theory and the practice, right? So the document is kind of like the high-level summary. The video is a video walkthrough of that document. The book is all the theory, and then what we're going to do is the practical training. Okay, so we should be approaching these things in multiple ways. They should overlap, they should reinforce each other. And hopefully, by the time we're really practicing, we will have enough theoretical scaffolding that we can kind of understand what we're experiencing so that it makes sense to us, which can allow some of the conscious barriers or inhibitions to fall away, right? Okay. So we'll start with theory. We'll heavily focus on that in the first 2 weeks. We'll start introducing practice into the second week, but by the third and fourth week, this will hopefully get up to a sort of a daily or a nightly endeavor. I will give to our WhatsApp group the resources that you'll need. And that is all of the content that I have for today. So I've got some housekeeping things that I want to wrap up with. But I'll just make it clear what our homework for the week is. Okay. So what I want you to focus on this week is the 60-minute gateway video. So that's like a high-level walkthrough of the CIA document. Reading chapter 1 of Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Clarify your goal. If you want to make a vision board or something like that as well, that'll be helpful. But know what you're aiming at. Okay, your manifestation abilities are going to improve. You might as well have something in your mind that will manifest itself, because otherwise, it can get sloppy, and then it can get, if you're driven by hedonistic impulses, if you're driven by lower, impulses, then those things will become more powerful. And that's really important to understand. And again, as I say, there's a reason that a lot of this knowledge is held closely by secret societies and like in ashrams and things like that. Okay. They call it epistemic hygiene. When you have these experiences, really peak experiences, it can actually lead to ego. It can make you think you're enlightened. It can make you think you're better than other people. It can make you think that everything that you do is good, that sun shines out your ass, right? So be careful of this. You will feel good, but it's important to be focused on doing good as well. Your actions are just as important, okay? And I'd like us to have a reasonably regular check-in on WhatsApp, which will get more consistent over time. But basically what I'd like us to do is when you finish watching the gateway video, just let us know. Say, hey, finished watching the gateway video. Or maybe you watch 15 minutes. Just let us know. Tell us what you're up to. If we're openly communicating with each other and we're communicating about the same things, like you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, well, guess what? We're starting to have shared experiences. So if we're going to get serious about understanding things like telepathy, well, shared experiences are actually a fundamental prerequisite. So this is actually laying the foundation for us to have shared experiences, which then we'll actually be able to tap into each other's emotions, minds, etc. Okay. Now, we don't have to take this any further than we want to, but it could build a foundation for some really, really interesting experiments, let's say, with consciousness if we want that. So let's use WhatsApp to just check in on where we are. If you watch 15 minutes of the video, let us know. If you complete the video, let us know. If you complete a chapter on Stalking the Wild Pendulum, let us know. If you have a vision board, share it with us. If you clarify your goal, let us know. Okay. And then Ricardo, I know that you said you had a bit of an issue with the school platform. Hopefully that resolves itself, but we'll use this same Zoom link each week. Okay, and we'll try and do it at the same time. It should be in your local time zone on school. So if you're ever unsure what time we're meeting, go to there. Don't ask me because I only have my slice of time. And then I wanted to raise the idea of availability just to make sure that this is the best time, and whether people had a sense that we should meet more as well. I'm willing and able to make myself available if people want to have more conversations or want to go at their own pace. I'm happy for that. But at this stage, I'd say 90 minutes a week until we go a couple of weeks might be the ideal starting point. And that is all of the content, everything structured that I wanted to raise. So from here, floor is open to you. Do you have questions? Are there things that you wanted to clarify? Anything on your mind? Over to you.
I don't have any questions, but I just had something cool I wanted to share with you. I think it's cool.
Please do.
It was like about 5 years ago, and I was just having a really bad day, and I was like, ugh, and I went and lay down, and I was like thinking, what should I do with my life? And then I had one of those huge like download come in, and it was just a man's voice, and it just said to me, Robert will know. And I was like, who's Robert? And then interestingly enough, there's like some really big names in dreams that are Robert. And I didn't know that. I watched TV the next day and saw a thing about dream therapy and had never heard of it. And it was being taught by a guy called Robert. But I found it so interesting that this guy's called Robert Monroe, who created it as well. So
maybe he didn't say Robert.
the Roberts all know something that we all need to know more about.
Maybe the voice didn't say Robert will know, it said Robert Monroe.
Yeah, that's so true. That's cool. And this whole time I've thought it was Robert Moss and then Robert Hoss and Robert Wagner and all these other Roberts, but I've been learning along the way. They all know what they're talking about.
Also interesting, my father's name is Robert.
Is it? There you go. The name of the wise.
There you go. Yeah.
There's, I was reading this thing about Einstein the other day, and he used to he didn't sleep much, but when he slept, he used to sleep in this armchair sitting up, and he had a saucepan tied to underneath one of the armrests, and he held two steel balls in his hand that was above the saucepan, and so he'd sit there and he'd nod off, and as he nodded off, his hands would relax and the steel balls would bang in the saucepan and wake him up. And at that moment, that's where he got his insights. He had a pen and paper and he would write immediately. And so there's this thing about that, slipping in and out of that sleep sequence. And he mastered it just with, that's pretty crude. That's a pretty crude way of doing it. But look what he achieved. Like, it's just crazy.
Well, that's really very similar to what we're going to learn how to do. And so what he's done is like drifted into sleep and then spiked his awareness, right? What we're going to do is drift in and systematically bring it out. So if we do it in this rhythmic, systematic pattern, we can actually stay in that zone, what would probably be called the hypnagogic state, where we're in a state of awareness, but we're also partially asleep, right? And we can actually train our body to, because, when you're falling asleep, you flinch. Part of that is your brain sending impulses into the body. And if you are continually moving, your brain knows you're not asleep, right? You get itches. And if you scratch it, your brain knows you're not asleep. So if we keep our body really, really still, then we can trick the brain into believing that it's asleep. And then it sort of, it disconnects the motor outputs from our sensory patterns. So we can feel something, but not act it out. So the more we train to be in that hypnagogic state, the more that we can access creative intelligence. And the basic idea from this theory, the holographic theory, the vibration antenna, that kind of thing, is that when we are in a certain state, we're not creative because it's coming internally. We're creative because we're actually open to what's happening externally. So that's kind of the idea. Any other very interesting thoughts or experiences?
I have a question, more than a question, and I would like to hear your perspective on this, and it's about the vision board and setting very specific goals. I always find it hard to set super specific goals because I start from the assumption that most of the time I don't know what is best for me. So I find it hard to find a balance between setting goals, which I know is fundamental in life, without putting too many constraints on infinite intelligence, which knows better than me what is best for me. And it's easy to say I want $1 million in 10 years, I want this, I want that, but where does that goal come from? And is it working in my favor? Is it not working in my favor, really?
Yep.
I'm curious to hear your perspective on this.
I think it's a great question, and I've personally struggled with that as well, because caring too much about physical outcomes, $1 million, big house, whatever it is, does seem a little bit counter to the whole idea of transcending material reality. If you've ever heard of The Strangest Secret, I'm sure most of you guys who've known me have, right? The idea that we become what we think about, and also that one good definition of success is somebody who is progressively realizing a worthy ideal. And you mentioned earlier that, when you've had deep meditative experiences, you get flashes of insight, and they come in the form of symbols, right? Or archetypes, right? So the yin yang symbol is an archetype that basically means balance and integration and oneness. And all of those things are described in one very, very simple symbol. So what I would say is, in your case, and maybe in all of our cases, is we're not so much focused on a particular material outcome, but a definition of an ideal or an archetype that we can strive towards, right? So the yin yang symbol indicates things like balance and integration. Or if you're religious, like the figure of Christ, right, is like being the best person possible, being full of nothing but compassion, right, and the greatest good for humanity, right? So these are ideals, and then that gives us sort of a compass, somewhere to aim at. And then if we are progressively realizing that, that is a good definition of success, right? So it doesn't have to be some tangible physical outcome, but an ideal that we find worthy and are willing to work towards. How's that? Does that sit well with you?
Yeah, it's what I tend to do as well. So work towards an archetype, an ideal. But when you read self-help books, they tell you, no, you really need to visualize the exact number in your bank account. You need to visualize this, that, and I think this can tend towards black magic or something like that.
And I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about those things, but yes, it can obviously tie you more to the physical world. So I think the benefit of setting something really concrete is that you know when you've achieved it. Right. And then, because if you want to, I guess, test this stuff, well, if you're trying to manifest things, then you want to be able to say, well, I have achieved this particular goal. So by next week, I want to have achieved X, and by next year, I want to have achieved Y. So there's something really great about having a very concrete, physical, tangible outcome, because it shows you exactly what you're working towards. So the flip side of working with archetypes, or the danger of that, is that they are vague. And you're never going to be Jesus. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Not in this lifetime.
Right. And so an ideal like that can be unobtainable, which can be difficult to measure progress, right? Because you'll always fall short. So and this, I guess, comes to the split of the brain, the concrete analytical and the holistic creative, is that having a mix of tangible and intangible goals, so some ideals and then some specific things that you would like to see benefit in your world. So maybe it's just a clean and tidy house. Maybe it's a mind that is able to focus for longer periods, right? Maybe you do want to make more money. I mean, money's energy and it makes life a lot easier when you have more of it. So it's not a bad thing. It just really depends on what your underlying reasons for these things are, right? But I've struggled with the same thing so many times, because one problem of having a concrete goal is once you achieve it, it's like, well, now you're aimless again.
Yeah.
All right,
I
we're
found
doing.
something that,
Yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say I found something that's always worked for me in that is asking myself, where do I want to see myself in 5 years? Or what do I want to have say, like, oh, I achieved this or I did this thing. What do I think the world needs more of? And for me, it was like I was thinking, oh, teaching dreams in schools and things like that, or attending the overseas conference I wanted to go to and put that in 5 years' time, and then work it back and like, what's the smaller step beyond that big thing? And then you've got actual like little goals that you can take. But I think it's more like, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years, rather than thinking of something like materialistic, I suppose. And then that might help narrow it down to something that's more tangible
Yeah,
if you know the bigger picture, and then like back it up a few steps.
yeah.
I hope you can understand my accent.
I do.
I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it makes sense, and that's something that I also do. Maybe the easiest way is visualizing myself being of service to as many people
Oh,
as possible, to the best of my
yeah,
possibility, and
yeah.
maybe reaching financial freedom, doing that not for the sake of it, but in order to do that even better.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
being able to cultivate certain feelings is great, because if you can exist in a state of, say, gratitude or abundance, etc., that'll just have its physical manifestations, right? There'll be physical correlates of that feeling naturally. So we can work in a number of different ways, and this training probably will help clarify goals naturally by the fact that you're going through it. I just think it's just worth saying, let's be very careful about using it for very materialistic or like personal gain. Like just make sure you got the right intentions, really. And then we'll refine this stuff as we go. I was going to say we're
Good.
doing great on time, but we still got 10 minutes. Abel?
Yeah, I was about to say something related to Ricardo. I saw for example, the video talk about the biggest secret in the world, and they give me a question which actually changed my perspective. It was, what would you do if you knew it's impossible to fail? Like maybe it can help Ricardo, because if you right now know that anything you're gonna do outside is gonna happen, what would you choose? What would be your choice? If I wanna have a burger outside my home, I want it to come. If I knew, I would go and get it. So maybe it can be a good question to ask yourself. Like, what would you do if you knew it's impossible to fail? You don't cannot fail, no matter what. You're gonna achieve it. What would you do? Maybe it helped me a lot. It really changed my perspective.
Thank you.
Love it.
I will think about it.
Angie, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah, regarding one of the points you touched earlier about meeting up maybe more times per week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel that it would be very interesting to perhaps try to do that, because it's only a short course anyway. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm happy to. I saw that there were a number of times on that list that were most people could be available, but not everybody. This was literally the only time where everybody was available simultaneously.
Okay, cool.
So
I
What
can be
I'm-
flexible if you want to change things up.
Okay. So what I was going to say is that I run some group spaces where I'm just like available and it's already in the calendar on school. So if those line up for you, feel free to drop in. But why don't we also maybe spend another 2 minutes and see if there is another spot that we could come and meet, maybe on a Monday or Tuesday. I think that would actually be a good idea, at least in the first 2 to 3 weeks, and then maybe in the final half or, tail end of the course, maybe once a week is fine. Does that
Yeah.
actually align well with people? Will you have the availability to meet again, say at least, say Monday or Tuesday? Okay, bear with me. I'm going to bring up the doodle poll and we'll just have a quick look at some of the time slots and we'll see if we can find one that would suit, and then we'll wrap up. So talk calmly amongst yourselves.
So, Ricardo, what instruments do you play?
I studied guitar and electric guitar for many years. I'm into blues a lot and rock. You too?
Mhm. I love
Now,
blues, yeah.
yeah. Now I'm studying singing as well because I find it therapeutic and I feel it's something that I need to pursue, and also music production. So I started producing some trance music in the beginning, but now I'm going more towards chill stuff, like with frequencies that are healing and stuff like that. How about you?
Actually, this literally the same as you. I play guitar, I play piano, I play bass, and I'm studying music production. It's quite similar. Yeah, that's why I asked you, because I saw your piano behind, and I have one as well at my home.
Yeah, I use that for singing, for practicing singing mainly. But maybe we can talk in private and
Yeah, I just was making talk.
for a collaboration or something like that.
So I had a look because it was just on a doodle poll, and because all the times are now in the past, I can't actually go on and reselect. So what I'll do is I'll just make up another one and I'll send it around. Does anybody feel like they just wouldn't have time to meet up again, say early in the week? Speak now. No. Okay. I do think it would be a good idea. And those little homework pieces of watching the 1 hour video, reading one chapter, and having a more concrete or clear vision of your goal would all be achievable across the weekend, right?
Yeah.
So let's keep on the WhatsApp and just inform each other of our progress. I'll send another doodle poll around, see if we can get together. We won't do 90 minutes, so maybe we'll just keep it as a little bit more focused, right? We'll talk about what we've learned. We'll talk about the HemiSync stuff. And we'll keep it focused, and then the Thursday we'll have as in this time we'll have the full 90 minutes. And we'll just calibrate as we go. Is that good for everybody?
Yes, sounds great.
Okay, perfect. And thank you, Angie. I'm glad you did bring that up.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will share that Google Doc with you so you have access to all the information that was just shared today, and I will share the resources that include the video, the document, the book, etc. If you want to buy the book, it's not a bad idea, but I will share with you a PDF copy. Okay, if you have a Kindle reader or something, that's great. The book could be ordered. It might take a few days, but it's a cool little book. Are there any final questions before we do wrap? All right. Thank you guys for being here. It really means a lot to me. This is when I left academia, like this is all I wanted to teach. And it's taken me the better part of 3 years to figure out a business, a lifestyle, a routine, and everything that I could support myself so that now I can teach this properly. So thank you. I think this is the start of something great.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be
Thank
in
you
touch
again.
on WhatsApp.
Thanks, Steve
Take care.
Sweden.
All right, thanks, guys. Nice meeting you all. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh.
Yeah.